Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, Peter, yesterday was quite an interesting day on Capitol Hill. As you know, Nancy Pelosi had originally wanted to set up a quote, bipartisan, unquote, national commission to investigate the events of January the 6th. That fell by the wayside when she failed to clear the 60 vote hurdle in the Senate. But not to be put off, she decided that she would go ahead and set up a select committee to look into January the 6th. For some bizarre reason, the membership composition of this committee was to be 8 Democrats, 5 Republicans, which is very strange because the Democrats have an absolutely wafer-thin majority in the House. So quite how they get an 8-5 majority on this committee was a mystery. In any case, Pelosi, in due course, named the Democrats, and as a particular glorious gesture to the Republicans, just to show how bipartisan she wanted it to be, one of the Democrats' slots she gave to Liz Cheney. Well, that is truly bipartisan, an ardent foe of Trump, who basically had already been ousted from the GOP leadership, but she was generous. Now, it was a kind of a, will he, won't he moment in the case of Kevin McCarthy. Would he actually take part in this committee? And he finally submitted the 5 names of who he wanted on that committee. The 5 names included Congressman Jim Jordan and Congressman Jim Banks, both of whom have been fairly solid Trump supporters. And Pelosi turned around and said, nope, I'm not going to have them. And she issued a statement yesterday, which was quite interesting. It's worth taking a look at what she said, because this was supposed to be a committee to look into what happened. So the statement says, the violent domestic attack on Congress on January the 6th was the worst assault on the Capitol since the War of 1812 and the worst domestic assault on American democracy since the Civil War. We are facing a radically new threat in the kinds of forces that combined to attack our government on January the 6th. The future of our democracy is on the line. The assault was an attempt to overthrow the government. And then she goes on that, with respect to the integrity of this investigation, with an insistence on the truth and with concern about statements made and action taken by these members, I must reject the recommendations of Representatives Banks and Jordan to the Select Committee. Now, Banks and Jordan are both senior figures within the Republican Party in the House. I mean, Jim Jordan is the ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee. So the whole point of democracy is you don't have one party rule. You have two parties. They have diametrically opposite views on many subjects. So if you're going to put them on a committee, you're going to have diametrically opposed views. The Republicans are not going to buy into Pelosi's view of January the 6th. And it was ridiculous for her to start stamping her feet as if somehow she was expecting the Republicans to be agreeing with her account. In any case, she said she's not going to have them. McCarthy responded by pulling everybody off the committee and said, that's it, we're not going to take part in this. He had no real choice. He had to go through with that. So now the Democrat says, good, now we're just going to have our own little investigation with our eight Democrats, including Liz Cheney. And as McCarthy is promising, there will be a Republican committee looking into January the 6th. So, the way it's looking, they're all going to start subpoenaing each other. So the Pelosi's committee will want to subpoena Jim Jordan, because he claims that he's somehow a witness to something, and the Jim Jordan committee, presumably he'll be on that committee, will want to subpoena Pelosi because they're going to ask questions about why Pelosi conducted herself in the bizarre way that she did on January the 6th, namely she had the Capitol Police stand down. So we're getting nowhere with all of this. My own feeling is that Pelosi has kind of shot herself in the foot with this. Her best bet would have been to go with this and pretend that this was somehow a bipartisan affair. Anyway, Peter, what's your take?
Well, I think Jim Jordan put it really well before he was disinvited. He said this is turning into impeachment 3.0 because Nancy blew it on the first impeachment, blew it on the second impeachment. I'm glad you read Pelosi's statement because, George, in a more reasonable world, okay, they have a majority before McCarthy walked. They would have had a majority, a larger majority than they deserve, but nonetheless, a majority. And presumably, at the end of the select committee's work, you would have a majority report and you will have a minority report, okay? So she's already written the majority report before the select committee even started its work. Because that sounds like a result.
It's the outcome, exactly. It means that there's no investigation here. You already know the outcome. You've already drawn the conclusions of this report.
What has happened here? This is getting worse than I even I would have expected here. You're right. They're going to members of Congress are going to be subpoenaing each other. Okay, right. This is going to get nowhere. And mark my words, is that all you're going to hear, however long this farce goes on, is each side is perpetuating a cover-up. Okay, it's really interesting that Jim Jordan got the boot when he got the boot, because hours before he was on Fox and he telegraphed exactly what questions he would ask.
Right.
Again, Nancy got, no, we're not going to talk about those things.
Right.
Okay? It's my interpretation. I think there's a causality there, but it's certainly an interesting coincidence at very least.
Yes, no, I think that that clearly played a role. What I think is also interesting, by the way, when Jordan was on yesterday with Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson said, "Yeah, I want an investigation. I want to know what happened to Ashley Babbitt. I want to know, why, what role the FBI played in instigating what happened on January the 6th." And then Jim Jordan said, "Yeah, and we need to find out why there was a stand down by the Capitol Police." And then Tucker said, "Yeah, I agree with that." And then Jordan said, "Well, that was probably because they're so anti-police because during the past summer they basically told the police to stand down, so that's why they were in that frame of mind." And you could see Tucker Carlson got very annoyed with that with his guest, because subsequently with a later guest, he actually came back to that subject and he said, no, it's completely untrue that Democrats are anti-police. The Democrats are very pro-police as long as the police are on their side.
Let me tell you something. I was eating my breakfast because of the hour change. I was watching it on YouTube. And when Jordan said that, I stopped it and I went back a minute because I said, I lost my train of thought. I didn't understand what he was saying. Right. And then you saw the grimace on Tucker's face and I thought, yeah, I did hear it right. Okay.
Right, exactly. And
his argument is completely flawed. Okay.
Completely flawed.
Pelosi now has a Praetorian Guard around the country and he loves the police.
Exactly. That's the whole point. The Democrats love the police. They love the police because, when they're on their side. They hate the police when they're, the police are in any way threatening people who are on their side. But, they love the FBI. They love security forces. This is, it's meat and drink. They're the one group. And that's why, everything that we've been finding out, what we talked about yesterday with the role of the FBI in the events in Michigan, same FBI, same, but this is only happens a few months later on Capitol Hill. So the idea of saying that the Democrats are anti-police or anti-FBI, I mean, it's like, your mind is sort of stuck in some cliche from 30 years ago.
So much more nuanced than that. Yeah, they want to demonize local municipal police. Okay, definitely, particularly if they can get a race card issue.
Right.
But what they want, why does Black Lives Matter and Antifa? They never criticize the FBI, do they? Ever?
No.
Never.
No.
So what do they want?
Right.
What they want is they want a national police force.
Right.
Because they already got the FBI, on their side, and they, and right now they got their DOJ. I mean, Trump never had his own DOJ.
No, he didn't do that. No.
And so what they want is that they don't want these pesky local police because they have if people say there should be defunding of that is the issue of cities and municipalities. We'll cut off their money. Well, they don't get most of their money from the federal. Maybe for special programs they get money, but it's funded locally, and that drives these people nuts. We have to have it all across the board, and we'll have a national police. Okay, and so Jim Jordan.
Well, the reason why they want the national police because they want the national police to go after their political enemies. I mean, this January the 6th investigation conducted by the DOJ. I think it's around 560 people have already been arrested, and they still got their eyes on some 300 more people. This is a massive manhunt, and this is what Pelosi and others, that's how they envisage we're going to use the police against our political enemies. And not just events of January the 6th. You can always find out all sorts of other things that they're getting up to, having all sorts of wrong thoughts, expressing dangerous ideas, which can lead to all sorts of dangerous consequences. So they're not anti-police. You're absolutely right. These local police, we can just stick them out, and fry them like Derek Chauvin. Boom, send him away for 100 years, and that's their idea. They don't care about that. They love the national police force that you can use as essentially as a political police force.
And these Capitol Police and their national affiliates. I can't even believe I'm mouthing these words right now. So Nancy Pelosi is going to have her own private police dragnet across the country.
Right.
The problem, George, here, we need to be balanced and fair here. If that's instituted and is being instituted, the next speaker, even if it's a Republican, they will have their Praetorian Guard. See, what happens is when you create these structures and you fund them, they never go away. They just get fatter and fatter and bigger and bigger.
Except that it won't happen because the Republicans don't know how to play politics. I mean, they're not in the same ballpark.
Separate video, but I mean,
yeah.
you get
I get your point, but it's like, the Democrats, I mean, the fact is that the DOJ during the Trump years was actually working against Trump. I mean, systematically at every level, it was working against Trump. Trump was the head of the DOJ, but it was working against him. I mean, the fact is that whole thing in Michigan, that was the Trump DOJ that went after the Michigan. And remember, those indictments were handed down just about 2-3 weeks before the election. So that was, and remember, this was actually a political weapon that was being used against Trump. Remember, Biden said, "Yeah, look, it's all because of Trump. Trump has been waging this campaign against Governor Whitmer, and look, now these crazies have taken Trump's word seriously." It was used as a political weapon against Trump. The DOJ knew perfectly well that it would do it. And it's the same DOJ, just let me finish, why that decided, I don't think it's right for us to investigate Hunter Biden because that might affect the election. We don't want to have an investigation that might affect the election.
I have a question for you. Another guest that Tucker had on was a woman. I don't remember her name. She's been on before. She's been following the case that was going on in Michigan.
Oh, Julie Kelly.
Yes. Julie Kelly? She said something that I thought was very, very interesting, that the Whitmer case was a dry run. It was a test. I thought that was I've never heard that before.
Right. But it's also Revolver News has been arguing that as well, that particular thing was a dry run. But there's a connection between the guy who was responsible for that in Michigan, the assistant U.S. attorney, was transferred to D.C. almost immediately after, and is involved in the investigation of the Capitol Hill stuff.
And for everyone to know, we're talking about an article that it was in Revolver, and in the last couple news cycles, an article, major article in BuzzFeed. George and I usually don't flack for BuzzFeed, but it was a very good piece of investigative journalism and a lot of food for thought, okay? George and I can't verify it, but I thought it was very well put together, and it made a lot of sense, and I think it's a good conversation piece. So
right, no, I think so, and then we talked about it yesterday. But I think what's just going back to this Pelosi, is she clearly wants to spin this out as long as possible, have as many spectacular subpoenas as possible, because she's going to be subpoenaing everybody, so that people will, of course, defy the subpoenas, and challenge them and so on. So if we can just spin this out, maybe go to court where people are challenging subpoenas. That's the whole point. It is absolutely clear for everything Pelosi says here is that she has absolutely no interest in finding out any of the things. I mean, and there are many things, that Tucker only raised a couple of them, but there's so many other things that we need to find out. Who let the people in to the Capitol? I mean, we saw the footage, people being let in.
Downs.
Yeah, who put out the story about Officer Brian Sicknick being his skull being bashed in by a crazed mob with a fire extinguisher? Why was that story out there for 3 months when everybody knew that this had to have been untrue? There are many, many aspects. Pelosi doesn't want to get to any of them. She just wants to say Trump did it. It was the worst attempt to overthrow the government in American history. Trump is basically, a fascist dictator who wants to destroy democracy. I mean, that's all she wants. That's her report.
The interesting thing too is that it's unlikely that Pelosi is going to run again. This is her last hurrah right now. And I think what she wants to do, I think foolishly, stupidly, and you started out by she shot herself in the foot again, is that she wants to be able to say that she was able to decapitate the Trump movement with her select committee. There'll be enough in there to be able to tarnish Trump's name and tens of millions of people, and that she's hoping that will be her legacy, because she blew it 2 times, one right after another, and she's going for a third bite at the apple.
Right.
It's not going to work. I mean, this is just dreadful. This is going to chew up a lot of time, and it's not going to resolve any issues. And this, in my opinion, at least, they don't want anything resolved. They want to keep the fire lit.
Yeah, no question. They want to drag this out as long as possible. So the hearings will start in the fall, drag on, because as I say, they're going to have a lot of spectacular subpoenas, and people are going to fight these subpoenas. So we'll spin this out well into next spring, maybe summer. Then they have to publish a report. So it'll be just right. The report will come out for the 2022 campaign. But of course, the Republicans will have their own report if they play their cards right. I mean, if they actually go ahead and ask some of these serious questions about Ashley Babbitt, about Brian Sicknick, about what was the Capitol Police doing that day, and so on. If they really probe those things, then that might well be a very interesting report that the Republicans publish.
It's theirs to screw up, isn't it?
That's a screw up, yeah. That's right. So McCarthy has an opportunity now. He can redeem himself by taking it seriously. Hiring or appointing some decent people onto his committee and letting them, find out. Ask the questions. Look. The Biden DOJ doesn't want to know about any of these things. So we know Pelosi doesn't want to know. So this is pretty much the only opportunity we're going to get to answer some of the questions about what happened on January.
The path of victory is to have very solid empirical questions. Who killed Ashley Babbitt?
Right.
Why did the sergeant of arms call 5 times the speaker and is told to stand down. If they do it, simple stuff, simple, words with 1 syllable, Kevin McCarthy, okay? And just have like 10 questions. There are many more, but just make your point, okay, and empirically prove it. Because what the Democrats, it's white supremacists, it's Trump, it's Putin. See, none of these things are empirically. There's nothing you can empirically prove. These are just slogans. Stay away from the slogans and stay with the facts. And you have a chance.
Right. No, I think so. I think so, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity. They should take it. They should take it seriously. Devote time, energy, resources to it. It's an important thing, because this is, as I said, this is really going to be pretty much, our only shot at getting a clear picture of what happened on January the 6th. So, they really have to take it very seriously.
Maybe the only story between now and the midterms.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. We're on Locals, everyone. So type in thegaggle.locals.com. We invite you to do a Zoom interview with us. We have the Gaggle store up and running. We have a Q&A. We're working on that. And we live streaming is within our grasp. And the last thing you pitch is?
The tip jar. Yeah, it's very important because we don't have billionaires underwriting us. We don't have, they're not breaking the door down, desperate to send a check. As Jeff Bezos, who sent a check of $100 million to Van Jones. Unfortunately, no one's come forward with $100 million. So anything that you can offer, will be most appreciated. The more help we get, the better the product will be. So remember, if you like the Gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.